If seeing new games and ports on the PS4 felt strange last year, this year is officially its true last dance, and by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why. I've rounded up 15 of the best new releases, ports, and remasters coming to the PS4 in 2026, and trust me, this is all we have left before this iconic console becomes history. Last year, many people were surprised that FC 26 even came to PS4. Now EA Sports is going one step further with FC 27. And come on, we all know this isn't a love letter to the fans. The series has used Frostbite since FIFA 17, with EA modifying it for 10 years without any huge visual or technical leap. PS4 gets a cut-down version without the grounds, the street football mode with one-on-one matches and other activities. Clubs is missing too, so you can't create a player, join a club, or team up with friends. A few new animations are gone as well, mainly the dribbling ones. Honestly, I don't see that as a huge loss. Solo players get an improved career mode, with serious changes to transfers and player development, while Ultimate Team works as usual. There are plenty of gameplay, animation, and physics tweaks, but listing them all is pointless. EA is basically selling a major seasonal roster update as a new game each year. A lot of old animations and problems are still there, and Frostbite isn't the real excuse. EA has no reason to rebuild a system that works and makes a ton of money. Still, with PS4's 2026 lineup looking painfully thin, few owners will complain about getting FC 27, and something tells me this will be the final FC game on the console. Modern Warfare 4 skipped PS4 in 2026, while Activision brought Black Ops and Black Ops 2 to the console. That nostalgia win quickly became a mess. Both arrived July 9th as separate digital releases, packing campaigns, multiplayer, and zombies. Iron Galaxy handled them, and ports says it all. Performance tops out at 1080p and 60 frames per second, with a fixed FOV, no 120 FPS mode, and little visual work. Pricing started the backlash, $40 per game plus $30 for each season pass. Altogether, both games and passes cost $140. And let me remind you, the originals came out in 2010 and 2012. Online has stayed surprisingly lively. PS4 and PS5 share matchmaking. Season Pass owners can join base game lobbies. Activision even used this classic matchmaking as inspiration for Black Ops 7's new system. Updates reduced input delay, fixed sniper tuning and party splits, and patched XP exploits. Some players still report unstable connections, cheaters, and slow searches in smaller modes. Nostalgia still outweighed all those downsides. Black Ops 2 already has over 40,000 PlayStation Store ratings, while Black Ops has over 18,000. Those numbers belong to two bare-bones ports, released nearly 14 and 16 years after the originals. Yakuza 3 earned the nickname Yakuza 3 because enemies turn most fights into blocking contests. For the remake, fixing that combat was the obvious priority. Kiwami 3 makes brawling faster, rebuilds Okinawa from scratch, adds a weapon-based style, and expands life at the orphanage run by its retired gangster hero. Dark Ties comes bundled as a separate campaign about the main villain before he joined the Japanese underworld. Its faster boxing-based combat earned praise, although many players felt Sega oversold the short campaign by calling it a separate game. Then came the cuts. Fans found fewer side stories, a removed system where bizarre street events unlock new moves, a slightly smaller map, and a rewritten finale that clashes with later games. New material brings real surprises. Yakuza 3 gets its first full English dub, plus a playable Game Gear loaded with 12 classics, including Sonic Chaos, Streets of Rage, and Pac-Man. Sega also stopped selling the original PS4 remaster separately, leaving it available only inside the complete series bundle. Despite all that, PlayStation users currently give it 4.17 out of 5 from more than 3,000 ratings, which is honestly solid for such a divisive remake. On PS4, Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 is easily the loudest horror release of 2026. 4 chapters kept the creature orchestrating the factory nightmare hidden behind recordings and half-seen machinery. Here, it finally steps into full view. Chapter 5 begins seconds after the previous ending, so earlier episodes carry the emotional context. Even without them, the setup stays easy to follow. Escape the deepest laboratories of a ruined toy factory while its killer mascots close in. An early attack strips away the gadget hands collected before, forcing veterans and newcomers to rebuild the same basic toolkit. The first Poppy playtime could be finished in under an hour. This campaign runs around 5.5 hours, mixing chases with heavier puzzle sections. An ultraviolet light exposes hidden markings, while a pressure-powered hand smashes glass, vents, and frozen barriers. Reviews praise the atmosphere, improved visuals, and late-game reveal. Most criticism hit the middle act, where unclear environmental puzzles turn tension into corridor wandering. Generous checkpoints soften the trial-and-error chase sequences, although the stop-start pacing still divided players. Chapter 5 answers one of the franchise's oldest mysteries and fully reveals its main monster. Poker Night at the Inventory began as a $5 telltale experiment that sounded like someone lost a licensing bet. One table seated Max from Sam and Max, Strong Bad from Homestar Runner, Penny Arcade's Tycho, and Team Fortress 2's Heavy. That absurd crossover became a cult game, then disappeared from sale in 2019 for 7 years. Underneath the cameos sits single-player Texas Hold'em. Conversation is the main attraction. Heavy pounds the table, Strong Bad bluffs and insults everyone. Cautious Tycho waits for strong hands, while Max embraces chaos. Opponents occasionally wager personal belongings. Knocking them out adds the item to the collection. Skunk Ape Games, a team of former Telltale developers who worked on the original, rebuilt the lighting and models, then attacked a bigger problem, the poker code. Old logic was genuinely broken. Hands were sometimes judged only by their highest card or with more than 5 cards, while illegal re-raises were allowed. This remaster rewrites that system, adds personality-based AI, and brings new decks and table designs. Drawbacks remain. Texas Hold'em is the only mode. Dialogue eventually repeats, and the PS4 version sometimes pauses for seconds between betting rounds. Defiance was the game where Legacy of Kain stopped pretending newcomers could keep up. Released in 2003 as the 5th entry in the saga's climax, it alternates between two vampires, Ruler Kain and his betrayed Lieutenant Raziel. Combat, platforming, puzzles, and shifting between physical and spirit worlds feed a Gothic story built on 4 previous games. Much of its dialogue feels like a series finale after someone deleted the earlier seasons. This remaster exists because Crystal Dynamics found a massive archive of old builds in a closet at its San Mateo office. Fans helped choose 9 lost levels from more than a dozen unfinished areas, and a longtime community archivist ended up directing the project. Finished sounds generous. Reviewers describe those levels as mostly empty concept spaces. Free camera control is the biggest practical upgrade, finally replacing the original fixed angles. Maps reduce wandering, while one button swaps remastered graphics for the 2003 presentation. Kain remains focused on heavier combat. Raziel handles more platforming and shifts between dimensions. Age still shows through simple arena fights, repeated locations, and AI upscaled textures criticized as washed out. Critics settled at 70 on Metacritic, while PlayStation Store ratings currently average a remarkable 4.88 out of 5. Planet of Lana II's hand-painted look is a technical trick. Wishfully mixes 2D sprites and 3D models so heavily that its creative director called the process working against Unity. Characters lack facial features, and dialogue uses an invented language without subtitles. Animation, vocal tone, and music translate everything. A short recap covers the 2023 original, letting this sequel stand on its own. Several years later, Lana's planet is rebuilding after a robot invasion, while greed and robot technology divide its tribes. Lana and her cat-like companion cross frozen peaks, underwater ruins, and industrial wastelands. Scope is roughly double the first game, although the campaign lasts 6 to 8 hours. Lana can wall jump, slide, and dive. Her companion now respawns across the entire screen, crawls through tight spaces, disables machines, and hypnotizes creatures. One puzzle may involve steering an ink-spraying fish past underwater predators. Another uses flammable slime to clear a path. Loose momentum can send Lana off narrow platforms. Climbing out of water occasionally respawns late, and larger timed puzzles sometimes force a full sequence to be repeated. Composer behind The Last Guardian gives all that silence a full orchestra, choir, and traditional Swedish influences. Trails Beyond the Horizon looks like a colorful anime RPG, but underneath sits a political detective thriller. The story begins around a government space program presented as a national triumph. A private fixer taking jobs the police avoid gets dragged into the conspiracy, while two other groups investigate it from different sides. Exploration moves through separate city hubs and field zones, with optional cases and linear dungeons filling each chapter. Combat switches between real-time action and tactical turns. Reviews praise that combat and the central mystery, then hammered the pacing. The opening lasts over 2 hours. Only part of the dialogue is voiced, and much of the campaign revisits locations from previous games. A focused run takes around 50 hours. Completionist playthroughs have passed 120, and some critics describe the visuals as being 1 or 2 generations behind. Optional investigations contain moral choices and score decisions as lawful, gray, or chaotic, but those rankings have no effect on the main story. Advancing the main plot can also erase unfinished cases permanently, leaving part of the side content inaccessible. Metacritic still settled at 84 out of 100, while the PlayStation Store rating is already approaching 5, currently sitting at 4.72. Longtime Gothic fans often name the same favorite, Gothic 2, with the Night of the Raven expansion. Complete Classic combines the 2002 game and its expansion, which adds a new region, pirates, bandits, extra quests, and a harsher balance to an already unforgiving RPG. Its open world feels compact rather than empty. Residents work, eat, sleep, and react when the nameless hero causes trouble. Progress runs through trainers and factions, while monsters can flatten anyone who wanders too far too early because nothing politely scales to the player. Still, Classic is doing heavy lifting. Models, animations, and combat remain rooted in 2002. THQ Nordic has advertised updated controls and full gamepad support, but has not announced a visual overhaul. The earlier Switch version needed 3 patches, with fixes covering crashes, broken bow and stealth controls, inventory exploits, and quest problems. Gothic Classic launched in July, but the first game already received a full remake that sold 500,000 copies in 1 week. Since these classics are sold separately rather than as a collection, Gothic 2 earns its slot in this list. Gothic 3 Classic is also coming in November, but PS4 is not among the announced platforms. The second chapter arrives September 29th. One of the most hated mascots of the 90s has returned to 3D after 30 years, and somehow Bubsy 4D is a decent platformer. The Bobcat debuted in 1993 as another attempt to chase Sonic and Mario. His lasting reputation came from 1996's Bubsy 3D, which spent decades appearing on worst games ever lists. In 2023, Atari publicly invited studios to pitch a Bubsy revival after 2 earlier comeback attempts failed to take off. A small core team built the game in 15 months and kept jokes about Bubsy's past from taking over the entire experience. The result is a fast 3D platformer across 15 compact stages. Bubsy glides, pounces, climbs walls, and becomes a physics-driven hairball, chaining moves to carry momentum through each level. Time trials, online ghosts, and hidden upgrades extend a short campaign. Movement earned the strongest praise, while repetitive environments, weak bosses, an unruly camera, and exhausted cat jokes drew criticism. Finishing the story takes roughly 4 to 5 hours. A launch patch has already fixed several soft locks, camera stutter, broken PlayStation prompts, and an endless death loop. After 3 decades, Bubsy finally has a 3D game praised for its movement instead of mocked for being broken. He-Man should have received a proper arcade brawler in the late 80s. The franchise already had giant muscles, magic swords, monsters, and a skull-faced villain waiting at the end of a cabinet. Yet that obvious game never existed. Dragon Pearl of Destruction is finally building it nearly 40 years late. The format is pure arcade, 12 side-scrolling stages, giant pixel art characters modeled after the original cartoon, and combat inspired by Golden Axe, Knights of the Round, and Capcom's Dungeons & Dragons games. He-Man, Teela, and Man-at-Arms are available immediately, while She-Ra unlocks after the first playthrough. Each hero brings unique moves and screen-clearing magic, while certain sections put He-Man on Battle Cat for a mounted charge through Skeletor's army. Co-op carries one annoying restriction. Only 2 people can fight together on the same couch, with no online mode announced. For a game built around a whole squad of heroes, that setup feels unusually limited. Its original April 28th date was pulled just 2 weeks before launch because the team needed more development time. PS4 remains confirmed, but the delay has left Dragon Pearl of Destruction sitting in a vague summer window with no exact date. Sin looked ready to fight for the FPS crown in 1998, then its own launch practically killed it. According to the original design lead, relations with Activision had soured, and the publisher never tested the final build, which shipped with its first boss accidentally disabled. Loading screens lasted minutes, the first major patch weighed 31 megabytes in the dial-up era, and Half-Life arrived weeks later to swallow the conversation. Behind the bugs, Sin was doing things most shooters barely attempted. Its heavily modified Quake 2 engine tracked hits by body part, let bullets knock guns from enemy hands, and accepted typed commands at computer terminals. Security cameras could be hijacked, vehicles driven, and player actions could reshape the rest of a level. Reloaded inherited the curse. Announced in 2020 for 2021, it vanished for 5 years before resurfacing in March, with the PS4 version still confirmed for 2026, although its exact release date remains missing. Night Dive is bundling the original campaign with Wages of Sin, both rebuilt for the KEX engine. Maps have been reworked, controls and menus modernized, models and textures rebuilt, and a button instantly switches between old and remastered visuals. Achievements and a higher quality version of the original soundtrack round out the package. Lionhead Studios closed, but 2 veterans involved in every Fable game carried its strangest instincts into Kynseed. This pixel art sandbox blends a life simulator with RPG combat, and one save can outlive its hero. Villagers age and die, children inherit skills and property, and control eventually passes to an heir. Farming is only one job among blacksmithing, potion making, cooking, fishing, and monster hunting, with hands-on mini-games attached to nearly everything. General stores, apothecaries, and blacksmiths can be bought, stocked, and staffed. The newly added tavern brings food service, employees, and entertainers. Outside combat, there is no stamina bar, and mandatory bedtime disappears after the lengthy childhood prologue. Kynseed spent 4 years in PC early access, growing from a limited build into a full generational sandbox. More than 10 major updates are already built into the console version, including expanded story content, farm customization, the tavern, and over 400 tracked challenges. Breadth is also where the cracks appear. The prologue lasts several hours, basic systems are sometimes explained poorly, and progression repeatedly becomes resource gathering or friendship grinding. 16 years after the original cult brawler, Pilgrim EX reunites the people responsible for its strongest parts. Comic creator Brian Lee O'Malley wrote a new story connected to the Netflix anime. Original pixel artist Paul Robertson returned, and Anna Managuchi recorded a ridiculous 71-track soundtrack. X is a side-scrolling beat-em-up with 7 playable fighters and 4-player local or online co-op. Toronto is one interconnected playground of quests, shops, hidden rooms, and repeat visits, built in the River City ransom mold. Combat stretches beyond button mashing. Parries, dodges, throws, assists, improvised weapons, and enemies able to block or escape combos keep every screen busy. Reviews consistently praise the pixel art, music, and how differently the roster plays. While repeated errands send players across the same streets, checkpoints can waste progress, and several encounters become irritating alone. Stat upgrades arrive so quickly that the difficulty collapses before the roughly 5-hour campaign ends. Launch week was rougher than the bright artwork suggested. Quest soft locks and multiplayer bugs could block progress, forcing tribute games to add a save repair system and patch progression blockers. Early updates addressed the worst problems, leaving backtracking and the thin story as the complaints that lasted. Postal 2 built an open-world first-person shooter around the world's worst grocery list. The 2003 game let you buy milk, return a library book, or collect an autograph, only for police, protesters, and half of paradise to start shooting one another. Errands could technically be completed peacefully, although gasoline, a shovel, and the infamous cat silencer were always nearby. That freedom turned Postal 2 into a PC legend. Reviews range from 0 out of 10 to perfect scores, earning a Guinness World Record as the most critically divisive video game. For PlayStation owners, this is the first official chance to play Postal 2 on a console. Redux rebuilds everything in Unity, allowing Paradise to stream without loading zones. Dynamic lighting, breakable interiors, smarter crowds, harder-hitting weapons, new content, and cooperative play are confirmed, while the original story and tasteless attitude remain intact. No proper Redux gameplay has been shown yet. Only a few location comparisons exist, so the footage here comes from the 2003 original. Running with Scissors currently targets late 2026 for PS4, although its crowdfunding page warns that console certification and expanded scope can move the schedule, and a slip into 2027 would hardly be shocking. And finally, our bonus is Lord of Hatred. Yes, it is a new expansion, not a separate game, but I couldn't leave it out. Diablo 4 remains the biggest action RPG receiving support on PS4, and this release carries more weight than an ordinary season. Blizzard added a campaign across Skovos Isles and 2 classes. Paladin covers the Holy Warrior role with shields, hammers, and support abilities, while Warlock weaponizes, summoned demons, and became the reviewer's favorite. Underneath that content came the bigger shakeup. Every class got a redesigned skill tree, the level cap rose to 70, and the free update finally added a loot filter and map overlay. Expansion owners also received talismans, the returning Heradric Cube, and war plans, which chain existing endgame activities together with new modifiers and rewards. Price remains the loudest complaint. $40 for the standard expansion still feels like full game money to many players, while launch week also brought progression blocking bugs. Patches fixed the worst blockers, but the funniest post-launch discovery took 3 years. Players finally opened Diablo 4's secret cow level. After all that hunting, the verdict was brutally simple. It needed more cows. So that's our lineup for 2026, and I think it's pretty obvious now why I called this The Last Dance. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And to lighten the mood a bit, check out my video from last year covering 2025 PS4 games. There's definitely plenty more to choose from in that one.